and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
You're watching Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Let's start with news that the Dewan Rakyat session for today was cut short from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. after several parliamentary officers tested positive for COVID-19. Now, we don't yet know if these half-day sittings will continue in the coming days, but it's already raised some concern. PKR Batu MP P. Prabhakaran has questioned the motive behind the decision, saying that he hopes that this is not a political strategy to bury some of the motions brought by the opposition. It's really raised a couple of questions, but the reasoning given is to limit exposure of sitting MPs to COVID-19, to limit the time that they're in the hall.
Right, Melissa, because it turns us to the question of the virtual parliament idea, something that's being practiced around the globe, well, not in all countries. And I think at this point in time, there's a lot of cherry picking. I can cherry pick as good as the next guy in terms of countries I would like to cite as exemplars of moving ahead with technology.
Which cherries would you pick, Sharaad?
Well, Melissa, let's start with the alphabet A.
Okay.
Well, so there's Albania and Angola, both which allow for virtual sittings and also electronic voting. And you can go all the way up to Ukraine and Venezuela that also allow some sort of hybrid forms of virtual sittings as well as face-to-face sittings with the appropriate SOPs. All this coming from an Interparliamentary Union paper. It's a survey, really, of what's happening around the world, because there are many countries where, those in power have taken the opportunity to halt Parliament, essentially, and not provide an avenue for a robust discussion. Others that had not quite responded to the COVID situation,
right,
basically conducting Parliament as always.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think what we're hoping to see is, even, I guess, steps or early steps. There's absolutely been no preparation. I think we keep hearing this from today. The latest was from Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob saying that virtual parliament is not a possibility. And I think for every reason that's been given, there's always a justification, but there's also a rebuttal. There's always been, some way to debunk it. So I think what we're hoping is, really coming up from the Speaker, really coming up from Parliament as to the reasons why there have been no preparations for holding virtual Parliament. Is there just a lack of political will to do this?
Yeah, a lack of political will, a lack of imagination. In this case, we see...
It can't be a lack of suggestion. That there's been suggestions coming from many quarters. Undi 18, Parliament Digital, one of them.
Yeah, suggestions galore. And of course, you only have to read around to figure out that, there are options. All kinds of platforms, secure platforms can be provided. And there are ways of confirming that a vote was taken, or, somebody voted in a particular way. And so, again, I think it's a lack of imagination. I mean, it's maybe a kind of complacency. Who would have thought that, we would open Parliament? This one of the few, full parliamentary sittings are expected this year, only to have it curtailed on day one. And so, I think a real disappointment when you consider how important Parliament is to move the country forward.
Definitely. We're going to be getting the thoughts of an MP after this about this specific issue, but let's take a quick look at other news. We have Datuk Seri Najib Razak, who has reportedly been appointed as Barisan Nasional Backbenchers Chairman. Now, as Backbenchers Chairman, Najib will be in a position to decide the order of the debaters from the Barisan Nasional ranks and look to relay instructions to Barisan backbenchers on what they should and can speak about during debates. And I think, if I'm not mistaken here, Barisan Nasional has about 43 MPs, 20 in government. So the majority, 23 backbenchers, of which Najib will have a say. If this story is in fact true, this story is coming from the Malaysian Insight, who are quoting BN sources.
Well, this story has been, of course, commented on by a whole range of people. And the question, of course, is optics. The optics of Barisan Nasional choosing somebody who's a convicted felon and no doubt a former Prime Minister beloved by a good segment of the country. I believe, there's there's, I think, something to be said about his enduring attraction to a huge range of people who believe that one MDB is either a hoax, or they, even when other cases come up, they say the money that was misspent allegedly was really done out of concern for widows and orphans. So there's a whole range of emotional responses to this man that maybe would intrigue people from other countries, indeed for people from other planets.
Right. Well, if I may quote that Malaysian Insight story, apparently Najib's appointment as the backbenchers chairman comes again amid tensions between UMNO and Bersatu, as we know, but it seems that Najib might be playing a bigger role to resolve the dispute, and I'm really quite curious as to how this might pan out. We're going to keep a very close eye on how this actually develops, but Najib is expected by many commentators and pundits to play an active role, particularly because his court cases, his appeal has now been suspended because court has been suspended because of the CMCO.
Well, Melissa, there's something to be said for his control of the party, UMNO. He is said to be very popular among division leaders. The source of that continued popularity is much debated, but to the extent that he continues to lead a faction in this very important, powerful party at this point in our political trajectory. I mean, we are at a juncture, as it were, between, what was it that we wanted to leave behind and the future. And so he remains an important voice. And of course, he's also been able to rehabilitate himself through a very savvy campaign. No doubt he's invested.
The Bosco campaign?
Yes, I mean, and the investment in that campaign, not just in terms of money, I have no idea what kinds of monies were spent on this campaign, this ongoing campaign, but I think the thought, I mean, really targeted towards changing the register of in terms of his appeal. Remember, going on a motorcycle and becoming the man of the people, something that perhaps we would not associate, or some of us at least, in some parts of the country, would not associate with the man necessarily, right? And so there is this really interesting play of meanings around the man that continue to, I think, either intrigue or shock or bewilder or appeal to
Well, we've
people.
seen public sentiment about him as reflected in a recent Merdeka Centre survey about his reputation. All right, we're going to take a quick break on the show, but after this we will come back and talk to an MP about what she plans to champion in this parliamentary sitting. That's all coming up in just a few minutes. Stay tuned to Consider This.
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face mask, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Fokus kita sekarang adalah gelombang ketiga. Elakkan 3S, iaitu kawasan yang sesak, sempit dan juga bersembang pada jarak yang dekat. Berdisiplinlah kerana virus ini tidak mengira darjat, umur mahupun latar belakang anda. Tiada masa untuk kita berlengah lagi.
Kita sekarang telah memasuki gelombang ketiga COVID-19. Setiap langkah pencegahan perlu diamalkan dengan penuh tanggungjawab dan disiplin. Kita mampu meratakan lengkung pandemik ini. Semuanya di tangan kita bersama.
We've done great so far, but the fight is far from over. We need to be vigilant to keep ourselves and others safe. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and when you're out, keep a safe distance. In fighting this virus, we can't relax, so don't be lax.
The war on COVID-19 is not over. We should not take this lightly. Let us ensure all steps.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me is Sharaad Kuttan. Today was the first day of Parliament sitting for this term. All eyes are focused on Budget 2021 as well as COVID-19 specific measures. But this first day has already been shortened to a mere 3 hours. Now, is there going to be enough time in this sitting for an adequate deliberation of parliamentary business by our elected MPs? Joining us tonight is Fuziah Salleh, MP for Kuantan, Chief of PKR's Women's Wing, and she's also the former Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department. Good evening. Now, Fuziah, where do we stand on the decision today to shorten the Dewan Rakyat sittings? Is this going to be decided on a day-by-day basis? Are we going to be expecting for the rest of the week sitting to be only 3-hour sessions?
Yeah, good evening, Melisa and Sharaad. With regards to the session this week, actually this week is all about is just passing the bills. There's a few bills in line. So there was the minister in the Prime Minister's Department proposed that we end our session at 1 today due to 2 cases of COVID positive amongst the staff of the Dewan Negara. So admittedly the risks are there, and I think we do need time to deliberate on how we can do it effectively. At the same time, on how we can ensure the safety of all our parliamentarians plus staff. So today, basically all party leaders agreed that we adjourn at 1. But I think we will go day by day basis. This week is not so crucial because this week we will not start the budget speech yet and the budget debate. The budget debate will actually start next Monday. So I think we have this week to find the best solution on how we can do it best, most effectively, how sessions should take place.
Fuziah, do you think that there was a missed opportunity, considering the pandemic is now, 6 months, 7 months into it, and that we could have had some sort of hybrid situation, virtual parliamentary sitting, things that are being done around the world. Do you think of it as a missed opportunity?
Yeah, I do agree with you there, Sharaad, because we have been promoting this idea much earlier on. Even during the first parliament session in May. The hybrid situation, I think, is a good solution because actually all of us need not be in the chambers. Our quorum is just about 26. I mean, we can take turns to be in the chambers while the rest of us can be in our office blocks. We can have a hybrid of both in chambers as well as be virtual meetings. We can follow the meetings from inside our office block. We have a new office block, by the way, and I think it is very, very possible to do that.
Okay, so that's what you're hoping to see. I'm just wondering, Fuziah, Batu MP, Pipa Prabhakaran, earlier today, he said that he hopes that the decision to shorten the Dewan Rakyat sitting to only 3 hours was not a political strategy to bury some of the motions brought by the opposition. Is this a position that you share? Are you concerned that this could be a political strategy?
On one hand, I am very concerned that this could be a political strategy, looking at the fact that the 2 negative COVID positive staffers are with the Dewan Negara senators, and they are not allowed in Parliament today. Everybody who enters Parliament would have done their test on Friday and would have negative results. I personally feel that it is unnecessary to adjourn at 1 today. However, I do not want to undermine the risk. I feel that this is also a good opportunity to discuss with the Speaker as well as other party leaders on how we can look into the hybrid solution.
Fuziah, what's it going to be important for you, apart from the budget, obviously, which has all kinds of dimensions to it? What other bills do you think are important? There's a lot of talk and reports about the possibility of something being passed in order to push back a general election. There's a lot of talk. I mean, but from your point of view, what's important?
From my point of view, I think Parliament, we as parliamentarians and Parliament as an institution owe it to the rakyat. We owe it to the rakyat to make decisions at the highest level, to debate on policies, to debate on bills, to pass bills, and to discuss what's best for the rakyat. So, well, there are lots of talks about this and that, but at the end of the day, we go by what's in the order paper.
Anything specifically that you're looking at?
You mean the budget?
No, just for the other order papers, but we'll come to the budget in a sec. I just want to ask you if there are bills that you personally are championing in this sitting.
There are a few bills at the moment. We are looking at the on the Koperasi, the amendment to the Koperasi Act. However, there were a few bills that were promised to us to be brought into this session. One of it is a sexual harassment bill that was promised. And on my previous portfolio, there was supposed to be the Wakaf bill. And I think the Wakaf bill will be very helpful at this time of pandemic, because it was when I was in my position in the government, we were thinking about Wakaf, using Wakaf or endowment as a third sector of the economy. And I think it will come in very, very useful at this time of the crisis of the pandemic.
What else?
So these are things that I'm looking at.
Right. What else would you like to see specifically to help during this time of a pandemic? Would you like to see in the budget the issues that you think should be addressed? Okay.
With regards to the budget, Melisa, I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is for us to survive this crisis, for us to survive the pandemic, for all of us to come out as a nation triumphant. What does that mean, basically? What does that mean? It means that head of households are able to put food on the table. Jobs have been lost. People have suffered. Families have suffered. Children have suffered. Children suffer from malnutrition. Children have difficulties continuing with their education. We have to ensure that children continue can continue with their education even if they don't go to schools. We must ensure that there's food on the table for families, poor families. We must ensure that businesses can continue even though in a new normal. And we must ensure that there is cash flow in the economy. So these are basic things that we must ensure to make sure that we survive, this nation survive, or apart from the healthcare, on the healthcare front. So
Fuziah,
all these are necessary.
Right, Fuziah, because the elephant in the room, I think the elephant in the chamber will be the question of a confidence vote or a de facto no confidence vote in the government. The budget is not passed. I know the Pakatan Harapan parties have reached out for a kind of compromise, confidence in supply agreement was put on the table. Do you think that's going to happen? Is the Perikatan National Government interested in reaching across the aisle to find some sort of consensus with all parties in Parliament?
Sharaad, I always have this ideal about how budgets are formulated, how other democracies follow the procedure of budget appropriations, where we in Malaysia have never followed it. The government of the day have always got away with their budget. Regardless, however we debated in Parliament, they will always pass their budget. So, at a time like now, when the present government of the day is at its weakest, and they are very, very concerned about a vote of no confidence via the bill to oust the budget, I think this is a very good time to push the government, the present government, to go back to the best practice in formulating the budget. And I think here we are quite happy to contribute to make sure that we have the best budget for the people.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight, Fuziah. We really appreciate your time joining us on the show. We're going to take a quick break here on Consider This, but we'll be back with more in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned.
COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Semak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face masks, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Fokus kita sekarang adalah gelombang ketiga. Elakkan 3S.
Hi, thank you so much for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our conversation about what to expect in this Parliament sitting. Joining us now, we have Professor Fauzi Hamid, political scientist at University Science Malaysia. Good evening. Now, the Dewan Rakyat Speaker today urged MPs to set aside political differences and disputes. Fauzi, do you think that all this talk about bipartisanship, is that something we can truly expect to see in this Parliament sitting beyond just the platitudes?
Yes. Hello, good evening, Melisa and Sharaad. I think there have been several calls by many parties, from the other side of the political divide, also from politicians and from academicians, calling for a bipartisan approach to the oncoming budget this Friday. And I think it's a bit advisable for the Berita National Government to pay heed to the advices given by the people, especially in view of the fact that their recent call or request for an emergency was turned down by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Now, if I were a Berita National politician, I would interpret that as a quasi-slap in the face, and I would reach out to the other side of the political divide, so that the budget becomes a truly Malaysian budget.
But Professor Fauzi, I mean, if you were Prime Minister, what would be the incentives for you to reach across the aisle if you could assure yourself that you could get a 2 or 3 vote majority? Wouldn't that be enough for you?
Oh, well, the budget is a de facto confidence or no confidence vote for or against the government as well. And I think after the episode concerning the rejection of the emergency request by the government, I think it is very urgent that the government portrays a face which appeals across all political inclinations, political parties, and so on. I know there are, of course, incentives, as you were saying, but I think if you look at the environment or the atmosphere in the social media, even as you discuss among friends, I think people are getting fed up and are quite fed up with the existing stock of politicians, including those who are in the part of the ruling elite, and that includes the PN government. And if you look at, I think, the stature of some politicians in the present government, it has been tumbling down, especially since this third wave.
So can I push you on that point? Because, you know, the Pakatan Harapan coalition has actually come up with 6 key measures that they're proposing, what they call the unity budget. They're saying that if any of these 6 key measures are not are rejected, not accepted, then they will not support this budget. Do you think they have leverage here?
We'll have to see this Friday. I think there was a meeting yesterday or the day before yesterday between the Minister of Finance and the leaders of the Pakatan Harapan. And I think a lot of their proposals were reasonable, especially in this COVID-19 era, bearing in mind the hardships that are being experienced by the population, again, especially the B40 in urban areas, the urban poor and so on. And I think these are some segments of the population that feel that they have been grossly, or inappropriately forgotten, or not being attended to enough, by the government. So some of the, it is, I think, very important that all the 6 proposals are taken into consideration, are given very serious consideration, and even if not all are incorporated, perhaps the very important ones.
Fauzi, do you think that, you know, much of Malaysia, we are kind of helpless spectators to the elite politics and the wrangling? Do you think that there are forces who would like to see this current government fall, regardless of whether they put up a good budget or not? I mean, do you think that's still a possibility?
Yeah, I think politics is basically a game of power, between politicians, aspiring politicians, even by some former politicians. We have the grand old man of many grand old men of Malaysian politics still being active behind the scenes. And as long as politics is defined or understood by the wrangling or power play between politicians, you can't avoid some people wanting to see the government defeated, not just in the budget, but even in during the tabling and debating of other bills as well, not just during the budget.
Right.
But the important thing about this budget is that it has always been a de facto vote of confidence or no confidence against the government.
Right.
So, sorry.
Yeah. Well, Professor Fauzi, we've run out of time, but we want to say thank you to you for joining us on the show tonight and sharing your insights with us. We appreciate it. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan, signing off the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.